So, we're looking at these five questions to follow up that focus on the arrival of Felletti from page 50 to page 56. The first question is on about page 50, how the Brechtian elements involved in the maniac stage directions on page 50 reveal the universal willingness to be deceived. Now, there's a range of different things that are important here. As the maniac's introduced, he says, perhaps my colleague can help. I took the liberty of inviting him to join us, a forensic expert from Rome. Come in. It's Captain Marc Antonio Banzi Piccini. May I present Maria Felletti from the... He dries up as he turns to come face to face with the maniac. And Maria Felletti and Pisani have risen to their feet and stare open-mouthed, as does the constable. The maniac is outrageously costumed. He wears a false mustache, glasses, wild wig, wooden leg, false hand, eye patch, and carries a crutch. Now, the key parts of this is overtly performative, but it's also overtly awful in terms of a costume for a psychiatrist. There's no reason for him to have a false hand, a wooden leg, glasses, a crutch. There's nothing of any necessity there that suggests a psychiatrist, and so it's almost as if the maniac is kind of calling their bluff at this moment with his costumes, that he's going to dress in the most ludicrous fashion possible and then reveal that they have so much at stake in what he is involved in. There is so much at stake for all of the police, for the journalist as well, in revealing the nature of, or revealing or shrouding the nature of this particular event, that he's going to push them all to their limit here, to test out their willingness to be deceived. So they stare at his wooden leg and he gives it a slap as if to remind them that it's, part of his performance. So this is meant to deliberately outline all of their willingness to be deceived. Particularly, Felletti here, for the sake of her own story, there is a suggestion here that she's willing to be complicit in this ludicrous performative vision here. The next question it concerns her the eye, the dialogue centered on the maniac's eye, symbolically underlining his participation in the deception that's unfolding with Felletti. So you think of his glass eye here, which he talks about towards the bottom. He says, "Mind the eye," as he slaps him on the back. "Eye, it's glass, you'll knock it out, oh sorry." And the eye here is another one of these symbolic props that involves the truth. So the eye here, I think, is about what the willingness to see the truth, and also its transparency, I think, exposes the sense that the truth is always nakedly obvious, and that actually it's about the subjective willingness to see through deception that is symbolized with the eye. And what happens with the eye throughout the act, I think, does symbolize that the subjective, willful nature of vision itself. And it says at the bottom, they discuss a parabola, which functions as a complete distraction. But what we then see in this dialogue with the eye is the fact that the maniac is involved in this deception. We are here looking at someone who is deliberately being involved in this performance with the eye, and he himself is involved in this being willing to see reality in a certain fashion, because he's providing the setting and the context for this to be exposed through his performance. The third question asks, in spite of its fanciful excesses, the police willingly embrace the maniac's improvised story to Felletti on page 52 to 3. What does their reaction to the story reveal about the truth itself, and how is the maniac's loss of his false eye connected to this meaning? So if we look at this story, the maniac says here, "I think we ought to point out that we're dealing with a case of suicide. The bastard wanted to die, so why the hell would he put his hands out?" And then further down, the superintendent slaps him on the back. And he says, "The eye, mind the eye, can't you? And then further down he says, not at all, not at all, no. You see, there were indeed bruises on the anarchist's neck. These were caused during the final interrogation, just before midnight. One of the policemen became slightly impatient and struck the suspect a hard blow on the neck. And they're all surprised that he's talking about this violent interrogation. And then he says 16 times precisely. The suspect was partially paralyzed by the blow and had momentary difficulty breathing. An ambulance was called immediately. At the same time, 2 officers assisted the anarchist to open window, supporting him as he leant out to take in a few reviving gulps of cold night air. Now, as is often the case in such events, each of the officers thought the other had the stronger hold. You know, that sort of thing. To me, Giacomo, okay, Battista, and whoops, out he goes. What more can you say? The simple explanation floors Folletti, who slumps back in her chair. Brilliant, superb, so simple, classic. Well done, Captain. And they're completely delighted with this story, even though it does clearly, you know, sheds negative light on their own performance in the initial interrogation, that they violently beat him and in the end have kind of accidentally dropped him out the window. And they seem to be in the act of aesthetic contemplation here in terms of the story, as if it's really well crafted, because it does actually fit the verdict that the death was accidental rather than a deliberate murder. But then the superintendent slaps his back and we hear this loud plop. And then he says, that's it. Fuck me. What did I tell you? It's gone. What? The eye's out. Everybody's down. And the constable, the superintendent, and Pisani crawl around looking for the eye. So we look at this here, and I think it reflects on what's just occurred there. So there's this loss of, I think, the ability to locate truth of any description. It gets lost in the maniac's performance here and their willingness to suddenly revise this 4th or 5th version of events that someone has just improvised for them. Shows us this willingness to see things in whichever way is most convenient. And this desperate crawling around looking for the eye, I think, metaphorically represents the way in which they desperately clutch onto forms of deception and versions of the truth. So we've got, again, that suggestion of the way that the maniac's actual performance with these stage props and costume features functions symbolically to portray the nature of truth, if it is indeed in any way possible in the play. And I think the answer here is that all truth is shrouded in layers of narrative reconstruction, and it seems to be malleable to a certain extent. The next question asks about Bertozzo's entry in the scene on page 54, which shares the effects of Commedia's Lazzi. How is he equated with the maniac, and how does his characterization connect to the theme of malleable truth? Examine the stage directions at the bottom of the scene for symbolism connected to the themes of truthfulness. The contrast between the bomb and eye symbols is key to this. So let's take a look at these passages on 54. The door bursts open and it sends the constable flying, and it's Bertozzo who holds a metallic package and also wears an eye patch. So his own vision is obscured, but obviously this is from his own previous violence with the superintendent. And he sends the constable flying, which seems in some way to be part of this farcical construction of what he reveals here. He says, Bertozzo, I'm sorry I'm interrupting. I just came to deliver this. What is it? My nose! As if all of them are made of props and costumes. So these interjections here that don't follow, these sort of non sequitur moments of the dialogue, seem to reveal the way in which all of them seem to be constructed from props and costumes. It's a reproduction of the bomb that went off in the agricultural bank. Splendid. Stick it on the desk there, would you? I found it. Where? So we've got here this bomb that is itself supposed to symbolize, I think, the explosive reality that the maniac is trying to expose. But again, it's a reproduction of that explosive reality, which again draws a kind of question mark alongside the maniac's contribution to this, and shows us that he can only be explosive with the revelation, with a reproduction, with theatricality, and with a performance of his own, just like this bomb. So the bomb is a symbol of dramatic revelation of the truth, but again, it's complicated by its malleable nature and the extent to which it is performative, because it's a reconstruction. So we look at the bottom of the stage directions. They talk about the eye. It's too late to retrieve the eye before it's stepped on by Bertozzo on his way to the desk. It sends him flying. As his legs go from under him, the bomb flies up in the air. So he's hurt by the truth or these false versions of it. And there's a suggestion here about the way in which the truth is being lost, I think, as this bomb arrives. Because this bomb threatens to reveal an explosive reality, but is itself a performance. And so this is probably the final sign that whatever truth we do manage to glean from this is going to be tainted by the fact that it has itself been extracted by things that are performative and untrue. And so the bomb and the eyeball seem to function at the same time here to suggest the loss of any potential clarity of vision about what we're going to see. So we have this, again, this suggestion regarding the eye over page 55 that focuses on the eye. Pisani gives the maniac the eye and he says, look what a mess you've made of it. Constable, would you be kind enough to get a glass of water to wash it in? Certainly. And then the maniac talks to Bertozzo, who says, your face looks very familiar, and that'll be because we've both got bandaged eyes. So again, we've got this almost implausibly ridiculous scenario where both of them have compromised vision, and neither of them can, or Bertozzo seems to recognize the maniac from before but can't. And so both of them have got compromised vision. Both of their identities seem to be the same but are both unrecognizable. So the fact they're unable to see here shows us the fact that there are different versions of the same individuals, and that those identities are just as unstable as the vision of truth itself. And then at the bottom of this, page 56, when they realize exactly why Velletti is here, the superintendent winks and the maniac drops his eye in a glass of water and shakes it. And Bertozzo is gagged, they shake hands and the maniac swallows his eye like a pill. And this simile here suggests that it's in some kind of cure, and that it exposes their willingness to swallow whichever convenient version of the truth is presented to them. We'll stop there.